So first and foremost, man, thank you so much for coming.
Of course.
This is a very special podcast for me. And I haven't been podcasting for a bit because of COVID and all the stuff going on. And my brother's kind of moved into the space. So when I watch back these episodes, it's going to be interesting to see. This shot specifically is different because we had to move away from where my brother's sleeping at the time. But yeah, man, this is an episode that you and I talked about for a long time, which is, I don't even know how the conversation happened, but we like made a deal that when One Piece, by the way, this whole episode is going to be about One Piece. When One Piece made it to 1,000 chapters, that we would have a talk. And what's crazy is that I remember when we first had the idea, I was like, we should wait until Kaido and Luffy fight. And what's wild is that chapter 1000, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Kaido and Luffy started fighting. And so it's been a really, really awesome ride so far. Week by week we wait. There's a chapter this week which we're going to talk about. But it's just cool to see, I guess, the evolution of this series, but also like how popular it's become. Like it's just gotten so popular, and it deserves it, you know. But yeah, man, what are your thoughts, I guess, on your initial thoughts on One Piece when first reading it? Because we're gonna start from the very beginning. So like when you started reading One Piece, like what was going through your mind the very first arcs, like when everything was new and fresh?
Oh, okay. So it's only right to say that you're the one who got me into One Piece. Like if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't. I'd be like, oh, it's cool, but I would have never. It's like that classic thing where it's like, there's too many episodes, there's too many chapters.
Yeah.
But I had time on my hands, and I was like, all right, let's do this. Let's really get into it, because I know that you loved it, and I know that like a lot of people love it. So, all right. So, as you know, the one thing that drew me in was the character designs. I remember thinking that like the characters were so awesome and so cartoony, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a cool story. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And I started reading it, and it felt like a real adventure. And I never watched the anime. I've seen maybe one episode, and it's the first episode.
Yeah.
Maybe like the first two, and I was like, this is awesome. I could definitely see like how this could be fun to follow week to week. And then just reading it, the story progressively just got more dramatic and adult. And I was like, okay, this is not what it started out as. It didn't. Yeah. It started out as this like fun loving and wacky thing, and now it's like, holy crap, like this is,
stakes are high.
Yeah, they're very high. So it's
interesting because the first episode of One Piece actually jumps forward in time. That's why it's like kind of frustrating to recommend the anime, one because of pacing issues and a lot of quality dipping, but I think two also the first episode starts off with Luffy being discovered by Kobe in Alvida's ship, which is not how the manga starts off. The manga starts off at a much more compelling part where it's like Luffy as a kid trying to prove himself to the red hair pirates, and he stabs himself under the eye. Like I feel like that's really cool because you're starting with him from ground one. And I think the main appeal of One Piece, before we get too ahead of ourselves, is like I would compare it to a JRPG. Like when you start a JRPG, you start very bare bones. The story is very simple, and then as you progress hours into the game, there's a lot of complexity, and the stakes get higher, and it rewards you for like growing with the character. So like, for me, One Piece is a series, like a comic book, that's actually very akin to a JRPG. You feel as if you are almost guiding them in a way. Like if they ever make a One Piece JRPG, and I'm sure they will when this whole thing's over, something like Kakarot, where it's like you can actually play through all the events. If they put it in the right hands, I feel like it'd be amazing. Yeah. Not even for fans, but just for like people to play.
To go off of that, like the JRPG element, it's awesome in JRPGs when you start the story as one character, and then more people progressively join your party. Yeah. So I mean, a pirate crew, how many more people can you get? So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think so the East Blue arc is really interesting because we kind of see Luffy as how a lot of anime portray protagonists. It's not really common for most action adventure series, but definitely with shonen. My Hero Academia, Naruto, not so much Dragon Ball, because Goku's strong like from the very beginning. There's something really strong about him. But in this series, we're presented with this character that is weak, right? That we know is going to become strong through a bunch of events. But in his mind, he doesn't think he's weak. I always loved how, he tries to drink beer, but he can't, so he ends up drinking milk. He stabs himself, and he really hurt himself. So, like, he's weak, just like Deku would be from My Hero Academia, but in his mind, he's not. In his mind, he thinks he's strong. So, like, part of the genius of One Piece is there's so many different devil fruits that people eat that give them abilities. And a lot of them are just really insane. Obviously, Oda is pretty creative with what he gives people. But the protagonist of the series, he gets rubber, which is so funny because you wouldn't think of that as a cool power,
No.
right? Like Ace's power is cool, like he can turn to fire, and so traditionally it's like, wow, that's a really cool protagonist, like he can control flames. But this protagonist, all he can do is turn his body into rubber, and so in the very beginning of the series, your expectations are so low because you're like, how can this power be made cool? Like, how can this power be made something that a main protagonist would wield with pride? And the way that Oda does it is so awesome. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think that the other the other elements of power level scale, I don't even know. Okay, not power level scaling. Just powers in general. Like, you got hockey. That's an awesome addition to the Devil Fruits, like Armament Hockey and Conqueror's Hockey. Like, those are just so cool. The concepts are so cool, and it just makes the Rubber Man that much more powerful and fun to watch.
I think what's really rewarding about hockey is that a lot of, and I know I'm comparing One Piece to a lot of shonen, but I think it's only fair because the success of One Piece stands above those series typically, and a lot of them have their own powers, right? So it's like in Dragon Ball, it's all about chi. In Hunter x Hunter, it's all about nen. In Naruto, it's all about chakra. Like, and in the probably not until chapter 600, actually I think that's accurate, are we introduced to like the mystical power of One Piece. Up until then, everything is just like brute strength, or somebody had a power and like and that power worked to their advantage.
A convenient power.
Right, which is really cool because sometimes, a mystical power, like, oh, they've mastered chi or they've mastered chakra, it's like, all right, there's no payout for the reader because they're just like, I don't understand this doesn't exist, there's no logic to it. But what was really cool about the early fights in One Piece, right, you have this character that can turn to rubber, and he's trying to fight this character that can turn his body into sand, and it's just like, how is he going to win? Well, he uses the blood from his own injuries to soak his hand so that when he hits the sand is solid. Like, I think that those early days of One Piece were really smart. Like, when Luffy's fighting Eneru, Luffy is rubber, Eneru is made out of electricity, so rubber beats electricity. Like, that was really cool because there was no, like, oh, you have to understand the power system in this manga, like, you have to read up about chi. It's just like logic compared to a different power. So it just made it smart and different. Like, none of the hockey stuff comes into like episode 600, chapter 600, but it's so brilliantly presented through foreshadowing and a lot of vague moments. Like, one off the top of my head before we get too far is, Garp in CP9, as soon as the CP9 arc is wrapped, and actually the reveal of Garp as a character, he punches Luffy, and the crew remarks like, wow, I can't believe like a rubber man was hurt by a punch. And, Garp plays it off by saying, oh, it's a punch of love. And then he takes his mask off and reveals that he's Luffy's grandfather.
It's one of my favorite scenes.
Right. It's an amazing scene because it's funny and also like very heartwarming at the same time. But then when you go back and read it, you're like, oh, the reason that he was able to hurt him is because Garp obviously understood how to use hockey. So what's really exciting to me is that One Piece is going to be an extremely rewarding series to reread.
Absolutely. Yes.
Especially knowing everything that we know now. I'm sure there's going to be little plot holes that we find and little inconsistencies. And that's just to be expected when a work comes from one author. But it's just going to be really awesome to read from the beginning. So yeah, your initial impressions were it started to escalate into something, I guess, that had a bit more serious implications for the characters and for the world. And then what really drew you in? Do you remember like when you were really like, oh snap, I can't stop reading this?
The history, the lore. I love lore. Just the Will of D and the Void Century, and just everyone's backstories, like just knowing how these characters came to be. And of course, Roger, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people don't really talk about Roger because he's in the background, but he's the forefront of the story, essentially.
Yeah.
I find that such an interesting complex. Like, he's just in the shadows, and people kind of forget him, but he is so intriguing. And I love how the story gets more and more deeper into the lore, and we're learning more about Roger. And that one chapter, it was later in the 900s where we actually seen Roger fight for the first time. And I remember I texted you and I said this, and I was like, is this like a fan chapter? Did like a fan draw this or something? And you're like, how is that possible? Like, what fan would put this much effort in there? And I said, because I didn't think we'd ever see Roger fighting. It was just so surreal. It was hard to believe. And just any info on that is just, wow. I loved it. And he's so strong, and it's just so crazy.
Yeah. It makes sense that Oda would show Roger fighting, and specifically fighting Whitebeard, because a big theme in One Piece is the camaraderie between men sometimes comes out of violence. Like, so obviously Roger and Garp were opponents, but they were also really, really good friends. And the same thing goes for Whitebeard and Roger. It's like Oda's demonstrating that the language between outlaws isn't always necessarily just like embracing camaraderie. And we see that echoed in the Worst Generation, where it's like Kid and Law and Luffy are all really rough and competing with each other and kind of violent towards each other. But in the end, we as the readers know that they're going to have the same camaraderie as Whitebeard and Roger and Garp did. It's just how it's going to end up, you know? So at some point you have to see them clash. But yeah, I agree with you. I think if you really think about Roger being introduced in the beginning of the series, right? He has very few lines. I think the first thing he says is, could you please loosen up these cuffs? Like my wrists are hurting. And the guy goes, I can't do that. And it's cool because once you realize who this guy is, you understand that dude was obviously under strict instruction, like not to touch him at all, because he knew that like he was so tricky, or he was so capable. And it's just interesting to hear that a character that went through all that would be complaining about his wrist, you know? And then he gets up on the stand, and as he's about to die, obviously he gives away the location of the One Piece. And what's really genius about Oda is the theme of One Piece is revealed in that very first chapter, the very, very beginning, and which is something I talk about a lot, which the manga explicitly references, which is lingering will, the idea that someone can have a dream, and we're trained to believe that dreams always come true, but sometimes it's not in our lifetime. Somebody else accomplishes the dream for us. And so like just with his words and spreading them out into the crowd, he ensures himself that somebody will take up his place. And it's just really, really awesome.
Yeah. Blackbeard, remember, was conveying that a man's dream never dies. Or it never ends. So.
Exactly. And it's interesting. There's definitely translation differences. I think in the anime, Blackbeard actually says the dreams of pirates never end. But in the manga, it's more accurate, in my opinion, which is a man's dream never dies, which is what the whole series is about. I think that conversation between Blackbeard and Luffy is often referenced. You can go on YouTube and you'll see it has like 5 million views. Like it's a scene that a lot of people love. And I think at the time in the manga, it doesn't really hold a lot of place because Blackbeard isn't even Blackbeard yet. He's Edward Teach. So we don't really know who this character is, but we sense in that moment that he's going to have a lot of significance later on. But that shot in the manga, I believe, I don't want to be incorrect here, I think it's actually like a double spread, or it has a lot of space around it.
Yeah, it's white. It's like...
Yeah, there's no background. And Oda uses that a lot to convey very poignant conversation points. And I would say that the climax of One Piece is obviously Paramount War. But I think when One Piece really hits its stride is like right after that scene, in my opinion. But yeah.
When would you say is like the tipping point in One Piece where it kicks into like a very serious story?
So I would say that's a really good question, man. So in Dragon Ball, the Frieza arc is the most iconic arc ever. And we find out that like in Dragon Ball, Frieza's obviously this villain that's been hyped for so long, but his defeat not only brings honor to Vegeta, but it brings honor to everybody, right? It brings honor to the whole planet Vegeta, all the Saiyans, Bardock, King Vegeta. Like, Goku basically is the descendant of slaves who rises up and beats the slave master. That is essentially like the high point of the Dragon Ball series, of the Frieza arc. Everybody references it. Super Saiyan was born in that arc, and influenced everything else around it. I'd say that the tipping point in One Piece is the Alabasta arc. And the reason I say that is because it's the first arc to introduce, I guess, like, it's sort of intricate understanding of politics. And so before, you had Drum Island, which is the birthplace of Chopper and King Wapol, who's become like a tyrant. But in dealing with Crocodile, it's the same hype as Frieza, right? You can kind of consider Baroque works to be like the Ginyu Force,
Okay,
where it's like all these tough guys, really tough guys with someone big looming above them. And this arc spans multiple locations. They go to where Broggy and Dory are fighting. Remember that, the island full of dinosaurs, and they're fighting Mr. 3. They're in Logetown or Rosetown. When everyone's passed out, Zoro's the only one awake, and he's fighting that black girl. Like, there's so many different locations where they're fighting Baroque works, and it's actually a really long time span until they finally meet Croc. It's the same exact way in Dragon Ball. I do believe Oda admitted that he was inspired by Toriyama, but I think that like that he might have, in terms of pacing, looked at the Frieza arc and been like, I'm going to do the same thing. Because you got to remember, Oda didn't know when it specifically was going to end at that point. He knew how it was going to end, but he didn't know when. And that, to me, that arc really seems like a ramping up into kind of like an end space, sort of, because it was really high stakes. But yeah, I'd say that the tipping point in One Piece is the Alabasta arc. That's when like everyone really comes together and everyone fights. Because before, right, it was just Luffy fighting the bad guys. Luffy beats King Wapol. You know what I'm saying? Luffy beats Arlong. Zoro and Sanji fight. But in the Alabasta arc, everybody fights, Nami included. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's when it gets real.
No, yeah, that's a great point. I would say it got real at Paramount War and a little bit after that. And the reason I don't necessarily, and this is a completely biased reason with the Alabasta arc, is because when I read all of that, I still felt like a kid. Like, when I was reading One Piece from the start, I just felt like a little kid, like, in this world. And then when those, like, oh, snap moments happened, then I felt like I was getting older along with the story. So, and spoilers, obviously. So I didn't think Ace was going to die. I didn't. I was, how I always read these things, it was like, oh, he's going to get out and it's going to be fine. But no, like, when I kind of, like, took him out, I didn't see it coming. I didn't expect it at all. And then I was like, holy crap, like, this is the real deal. They're not holding back any punches. It's literally, so, yeah. And then the introduction of Rayleigh, and then when Rayleigh was explaining everything, and then Nico Robin just asked him, do you know the history of the world? And he's like, I do know it. And I was like, okay, there's a lot more going on here. This is like a living, breathing world. This is something that it's just not as whimsical as it started as, and I love that about One Piece. It I don't know, like, draws you in like that. Like, some people I feel like would look at One Piece like, oh, it's just a bunch of pirates, it's silly.
Yeah.
No, dude, it's not a joke.
Well, I think what's really cool is that One Piece is very silly. It doesn't take itself It doesn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
And I think that's definitely part of the charm. With me, I prefer my anime and manga series that I'm really invested in to be kind of self-aware that they are cartoons. Something like Attack on Titan, for example, which is for the most part pretty serious. Again, masterful storytelling, but just not my kind of thing. But yeah, for the most part, One Piece has a really good balance of comedy, even in something like the Paramount War. Like, I feel there's classic comedic scenes from an arc that's so serious, like when Buggy's Buggy Ball gets deflected, and like there's just that shot of his face where his eyes are super wide before like he blows himself up.
The character of Magellan.
Yeah, even today in 1001, right, where we have this huge fight that's starting, we have this really silly moment where Kid, Law, and Luffy are trying to dodge projectiles, and like there's close-ups of their face.
Yeah.
That Oda specifically drew to be humorous. So like, I feel when you're creating an entertaining experience or story for your readers, first and foremost at the top of your head is like, what is going to make this really fun to read? Not like what is going to make this a super good story that everyone looks at with a lot of, wow, there was a lot of lore and writing and thought that goes into it. At the forefront of One Piece, I believe, and why it's so popular, is what's going to make this fun. Like, what is going to make this fun to read? And I think Oda really knows when to make things silly and want to keep things serious. So with the Paramount War, I consider that to be the climax of the series. According to Oda, Fishman Island is the halfway point of the series, but I agree with you when the tone shifts at Paramount. And just a personal anecdote, One Piece does this thing where it kind of deals with a lot of real life pain, but it allegorizes it as certain situations, right? So a really early example could be in the Water 7 arc, where they have to say goodbye to the Going Merry. And it's a big deal because that ship was the ship that they had all their memories with. But more specifically, if you remember how they got it, it was a ship that was given to them in the arc where they recruit Usopp, the Captain Kuro arc. Remember? And it was given to them by that guy that looked like Mary. Remember her butler?
I don't remember.
Okay, so
oh man, that's
no,
way
no,
back.
it's cool. I'll just briefly remind you. So Captain, I almost called him Captain Usopp. Usopp, he has that woman that he adores that he talks to every day and lies to her. Remember?
Oh yeah, it tells her the stories.
Yeah, she has a butler that literally looks like the Going Merry. He's a ram, and he has like.
Oh yeah.
So when they receive that boat, it has a lot of sentimental value specifically to Usopp.
Yeah, and I remember the anime. Excuse me for interrupting.
Yeah, no,
but
you're
the
fine.
anime was
You're not
like,
interrupting.
they really they drew that out. That how much that meant to him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when we get to this arc where they have to say goodbye, it causes like the first actual friction of the crew, where Luffy has to fight Usopp for the Merry. He wins, but decides to give Usopp the Merry anyway. And then you have this scene, which to me is like one of the most beautifully illustrated scenes of depression in One Piece, where it's the evening of them leaving the Merry, and the only person on the ship is Usopp, and it's 2 pages, so it's an overhead shot of the Merry in the first panel, and then the second panel it's the deck, which would normally have all the characters on it, completely empty, and then it's a shot of Usopp laying on the deck by himself, and he's just looking up at the sky, and you think that he'd be happy because he got the Merry, but he's absolutely miserable because he sacrificed his friends. And it's like this message that's very real and kind of, I guess, adult oriented, where in life you have to say goodbye to people and you have to say goodbye to things, and as much sentimental value as they have, and as much as you've maybe had a lot of adventures and journeys with them, you have to say goodbye. And I feel like a lot of series don't deal with stuff like that. Like I feel like a lot of series typically deal with, like, oh, I have to get stronger, like I lost, or like, this can be done through training, like, or just different things that I guess don't have as much sentimental meaning. That scene where they're burning the Going Merry, and Luffy is telling the Merry, hey, I'm sorry, we broke a lot of stuff on you. Usopp tried to fix you, and he didn't know how to because he's not a carpenter. And he goes, we treated you pretty badly. And I think it's the last words the Merry says, is she says, but I was happy. And it's
yeah.
Dude, if that's not an allegory for relationships, like it's so well done. And I remember reading an interview with Oda. He said that he was like crying like as he was drawing that, and just making that arc in general. What I think is the most rewarding thing about reading something like that is that you can feel the emotion of the artist through his work. And that's what really makes One Piece great. Not the fact that it's long, or that it has great characters, or that it has compelling story arcs, but that you feel what the artist is trying to convey. And in my opinion, the day that stops is the day that One Piece dies. But so far, it's just been very consistent in delivering those very real moments.
Yeah.
And the time skip's another one of those, right? So it's like the Paramount War is really big for you. The time skip, the 2-year time skip, is very much like real life. It's like you have all these goals and ambitions, but then something happens like now where we have COVID that you're forced to wait. And what do you do in that time? You train, you refine your craft. Everybody went off and did their own thing. It's very allegorical to what's happening today,
Yeah, I totally agree. And then when you come back, like they were all ecstatic to see each other, and it's like they never left.
Yeah.
So,
but it's just one of those things where you would expect a normal series to just like progress. Like there's no 2-year gap. There's nobody taking a break. But in real life, that's not how it works. Like some people, before they go to school, they take a break before they go into college. Like it's very reminiscent of the real world. And I think that Oda designed that to relate to readers so that when they're reading this, they can go like, oh, I find a little bit of that in myself.
Well, didn't he go on vacation for that, right? It wasn't like the time skip like part with his vacation. Remember that? He needed like a month off.
I've never heard about that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah, I think that's the time skip was drawn or like to kind of like go hand in hand with his vacation, because when the time skip happened, it was One Piece was off for a month.
Oh, interesting.
So, yeah.
I didn't know that. Huh. Okay. Now I need to check that out.
Yeah, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's how it went. Something like that.
It probably, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. I think it'd be even cooler if like Oda crafted that around himself. But yeah, and then you know, post time skip, you have another really peculiar thing that you don't see in a lot of series, which is everybody comes back with a redesign.
Oh yeah.
And it's just really, really cool because it's not exclusive just to the crew. When you see characters from previous arcs after the 2 years, a perfect example is Lucci and Kaku. Like, they look completely different. You know what I'm saying? Where they have white suits. Kaku has like a Lucci has like a cape now. Just everybody has this kind of 2-year feel to them. Where like King Wapol, he looks less like a tyrant and more like a fashion designer. Everything's different. And it's so much thought that goes into like, I can't make these characters look the same, you know?
Yeah.
But it's also symbolic of how they've grown. Like, Frankie is a lot bigger. He actually is like an actual machine, you know? Zoro looks like somebody from a Kurosawa, era samurai film where he has like a scar over his eye.
And we don't know how he got that.
Yeah. So it's just like a lot of really cool stuff that you wouldn't expect after the time skip. Just little details that make everything a little more intricate. Which is, I can't think of any other series that has done it that way, where there's like a block of time and everybody comes back looking different, and then that look is permanent, you know? And it makes you feel that there's real world consequences to the series. Because everything doesn't just fall in like normal, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's very active. It's a world that's very active. So like, what we're reading in the story right now, there's things going on behind the scenes. There's different pirates moving. The Yonko are moving. Shanks is doing something. Blackbeard is doing something, all while they're at Wano. So, I mean, it's just it's a story that is full of life, like you were saying. So, I mean, it's only right that they would change their appearance and whatnot. Yeah.
So before we dive into like the New World stuff and a lot of the more recent storylines and story points, what's like your favorite arc? Some of your favorite moments, and then your favorite characters, and just like expand on that if you could.
So we'll do favorite arc. My favorite arc, you could go first because I don't know what my favorite arc is.
I feel like I've done so much talking though. Like, I feel bad.
It's fine. It's the ANDREWCAST.
Nah, man. So my favorite arc will always be Water 7.
Okay.
Yeah, So Water 7, like I said, had the first friction in the crew, which is something that I never expected, you know? I expected everything to work cohesively. Another thing that arc does really well is it gives Luffy, like, his first official power-up. Because you're wondering, like, what's he going to do? Like, is he going to transform?
Oh, Gear 2? Yeah. I remember reading that. I was like, oh, I'm excited. Yeah. I mean, what does he say? He's like, oh, I have something I want to try out. I was like, holy crap, like, what's he going to do?
And it's just, like, that is a direction that, again, is clever when you think about it, because it's just like a rubber band. Like, rubber bands kind of snap and have this action, but when they're heated up, when rubber's heated up, it can stretch more. And it's like, all right, Luffy got a power up. That's really cool. And then what's even more awesome about the series is that the crew breaks up, and then even after the crew breaks up, they come back together because one of their own is in danger. And like, that is, it's just such a cool detail. Even though the person who broke up the crew, Usopp, he comes back as Sogi King. It's really cool to see that they care so much about Robin that they would come back together. Because the premise of that arc after the fight is Usopp can't come back and join unless he apologizes. And Zoro and everyone's not everyone, I'd say Zoro and Sanji are very clear on that, and Luffy he's beholden to agree. But that all goes out the window when one of their own is in danger. And it's just a really powerful idea. And we also, for the first time, see Luffy get challenged as a character, which is why I like Water 7. Because normally in Shonen, like, you know, Goku, Naruto, Gon, all these characters are usually always right. in the eyes of the reader, in the eyes of the world that they live in, besides the villain. You know, the villain thinks they're wrong. That's why they have to beat the villain. But in this particular scenario, you know, Luffy, there's a scene, man, that's really important in the very beginning of Water 7, in the conflict where Luffy is fighting Usopp. After he beats Usopp, he starts crying and he says, "This is too much," to Zoro. It's just a shot where Oda doesn't show his face. He shows kind of the profile of Luffy. And the way that the shot is drawn, it's inferring that he's crying because he has his hat tilted over his eyes. And he says to Zoro, he goes, "This is too much." And Zoro responds, "This is the burden of being a captain."
Yeah.
And like for the first time, we see that it's not... For Luffy, he has to not only fight these outside forces, but he has to fight to keep his crew together. And we're not used to seeing him do that because to us, he's presented as an idiot or somebody who's carefree. But now we have to see kind of a side of him where he has to be a delegator. So that's really interesting. So the power-up physically, the power-up as a character, we actually see him develop as a character. And then the fights of One Piece. So I think every single anime has a tower arc. Every single anime has a tower, or manga, I should say, and the character fights up the tower and progresses that way. It's almost a tradition in the genre. But in this in this manga, the tower arc where the characters are battling up a tower gets so out of control. Like at one point, the tower itself gets sliced in half, and I think it's really cool because it's Oda's spin on that true and tested element. But yeah, another reason it's my favorite arc is that we get our favorite Straw Hat. Well, my favorite Straw Hat, which is Frankie. And what happens from there is we learn about one of the ancient weapons. So boom, that already is a huge arc, right? We learn about Pluton. And then we get the reveal that Luffy's grandfather is part of the Marines. Not only that, but he was trying his whole life to get Luffy to be a Marine. Yeah. And then at the very end of the arc, Usopp apologizes and he's back on the crew. So like, I guess the reason that Water 7 is my favorite, not only aesthetically, because I like Lucci and CP9 as villains. I think it's really cool. They're like a super-powered, government-oriented mafia. Really awesome.
Yes, behind the scenes.
Yeah, and the whole town is based off of Venice. Like that, it's just so cool. So aesthetically, I like it. But I'd say with the most meaningful twists and turns, it would definitely be Water 7.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess to briefly talk about my favorite characters, I've been voting. I'm not sure if you've been voting, but you can vote every day. I think it's in January, the popularity contest, excuse me. So my first vote was obviously Kizaru. I love Kizaru. I think it's really cool that Kizaru is one of the admirals, and his Logia fruit type is light. He can transform himself into light. And I think that Oda did a really cool thing where he makes this character who moves at the speed of light and who moves so quickly and intensely have such a relaxed and snail-like personality.
That's the thing I don't like about him, dude. I remember just reading him, like, I was, like, afraid of him because he is that, like, composed. He's so powerful, but he's just, like, so childish.
He's so, silly. And also just kind of emotionless. I really love how you would expect, I guess, in Western media, a character who zips around really fast to be kind of zippy in their personality. But Kizaru's the opposite of that. He's very calm, very meditative, but he just so happens to move around super fast. So I've always liked that. What is the word? Contrast. The rest of the characters, I mean, I'll just explain them really quick. Smoker is probably my second favorite. I think Smoker was very much inspired by Lupin III, how Lupin's always being pursued by this cop. But him and the cop kind of have this camaraderie, which is what happens in One Piece, where Smoker is chasing Luffy, but also has this begrudging respect for him as the series progresses.
Yeah, he's like reluctantly is like kind of on his side, but he's still against him. That's just, I never understood that. It's like,
I'll go into that a little bit. Again, I'm not trying to talk your ear off. But in the very beginning of One Piece, Oda introduces Smoker as a good guy. So we as the reader know that he's good. There's never any doubt that he's bad. And the way that he does this is with Smoker's first interaction with a side character in the series. So there's the little girl with the ice cream, and she's walking up to Smoker, and she drops the ice cream onto his pants. And everybody around Smoker, all these onlookers, people who live in the city, they kind of have this collective gasp. And that's letting the reader know that, oh, the person who the ice cream just got dropped on is very powerful, very scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we as the audience are expecting this crazy reaction. And we know what happened in the very first arc of One Piece where I think it was Helmeppo's dog bit somebody. Zoro killed the dog. And so Helmeppo's answer to that was to like torture him and tie him to the stick. So we know that like if somebody messes with a powerful character in the series, regardless of who they are, they get punished. So you turn the page like waiting for him to smack this little girl in the face, and he leans down and he goes, "I'm sorry, my ice cream ate your pants," and he gives her a coin. I mean, I'm sorry, my pants ate your ice cream. Excuse me, I botched that. He goes, "I'm sorry, my pants ate your ice cream," and he gives her a coin. And it's like, in maybe 4 panels, Oda shows us this character that the world fears, but is so kind that he would like buy ice cream for a kid. And I love that. Like, to me, that's a character I want to know about. Like, that's a really great character. And he pursues Luffy with such fervence, not because he has respect for the Marines, because as we see in Punk Hazard, he forms like the G6 or whatever the faction is. But it's more that like it's a pride thing. Like, he wants to catch and obtain Luffy for himself. And so here we have this guy who's an idealist. He's super powerful, but also very kind. Like, I love that in a character. So yeah, I voted for him. I voted for Pell. So Pell is another one of my favorite characters. Pell is the bodyguard of Vivi. I'm not sure if you remember. He's the guy that turns into the Falcon. This is a while
Is that
ago.
the guy with the hair? The Broke's Work guy with the hair?
No. He's the guardian of Vivi. So he's the one.
I don't have this image in my head.
It's cool. It's a long time ago. But yeah, I basically like that character because of aesthetic reasons. He's a Zoan user. He can turn into a hawk. He's the guy who infamously survives in like one of Oda's kind of quick writing get-outs where he takes the bomb out of the clock tower. Do you remember that?
I do, yeah. I remember reading that. That was such a rush.
And he survives the explosion. I love Pell. I just think he's a really cool character. Any character that tries to sacrifice himself for the good of others is a good character in my book. And then finally, my favorite Straw Hat, and I want to ask you your favorite Straw Hat too when you give this spiel, is Frankie. I think that Frankie, in the very beginning, he's introduced as this bully, kind of this tough guy. He has the classic, I guess what you would say, Japanese appearance of a mobster or like a street person.
He wore the mask, right? I remember that was on the volume cover.
He did. So he wears the mask originally because they're trying to steal the money that the Straw Hats get. And they end up doing so, him and the Frankie family. And of course, that's supposed to be a play on the actual festival that occurs in Venice in real life where everyone wears masks. But he's introduced with kind of like the slick backed hair. Like, he's supposed to look like a Japanese idea of an underworld guy and a pervert. So he has the chain, the hair on the chest. He's got the open shirt. He's got the hair slicked back and the sunglasses. So he's supposed to look like a classic bully character. And he wears a Speedo. So like everyone's calling him pervert. And he's just really rough. In the very beginning, he fights Luffy. And then we see that he's incredibly sensitive. So like this macho guy cries at secondhand stories. Every time a character experiences something sad and he's listening to the sad experience, he's crying, which is it's just hilarious because you would never expect a character like him to be so tough. If you can't tell by now, like, I really love characters that have contrasting details. A tough guy who cries. But then we see his backstory, and we see that he's haunted by the fact that the person that he loved most in the world, which is Tom, dies because of something that he did. And he's not able to accept it. And I think I really relate to this as a person where there's a permanent consequence for something that you've done. And instead of being able to move forward and being like, I messed up, it's time to move on, he can't let that go. So Spandam ends up killing Tom because of something that Frankie did. Not to get super deep into it. But as a result, Frankie goes onto the train tracks of, the water train, and he tries to stop it. And he can't. He gets run over by the train, much to Spandam's joy. And we see him literally get torn apart. There's a really great panel where Frankie's shirt passes by the window of Spandam laughing. And we see blood, and it's just like, wow, he got destroyed by the train. Which is what happens in real life. The consequence of trying to hold on to something that you've done and punish yourself for it is that you destroy yourself. So what is the solution? Well, the real life solution is to accept that you've made a mistake and become stronger because of it. And so Frankie literally embodies that because he comes back as a cyborg. Like, he comes back half metal.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, if that's not what happens in real life, you go through a rough experience, you've made a terrible mistake, you sit with yourself, you work on yourself, which is what he did literally. He starts augmenting himself, and he comes back as someone stronger, completely different. He's Cuddy Flam. And I feel like that's such an awesome character. And it's only explored very little. Frankie is kind of the guy who's in the shadows for most arcs. He doesn't really say a lot. He's mostly there for comic relief. He has some pretty cool fights, but he's not like one of the main guys.
Yeah.
I love him, though, because he's just somebody who's tough but sweet at the same time, and his struggle is so relatable to me. So that's it. That's my favorite arc and a few of my favorite characters. I want to hear yours.
Is he ranked high in that character popularity thing?
I can tell you who the top 3 are, but you'd probably be able to guess.
Was it Luffy, Law, Chopper?
No. So Zoro is like top everywhere.
Oh, wow.
Zoro's top in the United States. Most countries, Zoro's big, and then Luffy and Sanji.
Oh, Sanji? That's funny. So my favorite arc,
And favorite characters. And take your time, man.
Okay.
Seriously, talk about all of it. Dissect all of it.
I don't like admitting this, but I really, really like Wano. I think Wano is a really kick-ass arc. I think everything that's going on...
Why don't you like admitting it?
Because it's so fresh. You know what I mean? You have this, like, awesome respect for Water 7, and because it's such a classic arc, like Wano is shaping into be a classic arc, but I feel like as like a One Piece fan, but I'm still kind of a new One Piece fan in a way, kind of. 2018 I finished it or caught up, but yeah, Wano is it's firing in all cylinders. It's so great because it is a new arc. It's the current arc, but it was alluded to almost throughout the entire series, and to my knowledge, this is the one that Oda himself has been hyping up.
Yeah.
So I just think it's so great that we finally have it, and every chapter has been awesome. Like some missed, but like almost every one has been amazing. And then we have, correct me if I'm wrong, but does every arc have a flashback? If not every arc,
I think so.
Yeah. So
Most of them. Yeah.
This one with Odin's flashback was just so awesome. Like I wanted like a whole story on Odin. I mean, we kind of got the flashback was kind of long, but yeah, just seeing everyone finally come together, the worst generation. We're finally seeing Kaido fight. We're seeing Big Mom and Kaido come together. So we're finally seeing these unions, which is awesome. And then we find out that Ace, was in Wano too. Like that's so crazy. And then you were saying that the idea of rereading One Piece. I'm so excited to reread One Piece because you see this character, and when you first read Ace, you're just like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. And then now you know, it's like, wow, he was in Wano. He did like all these crazy things. So yeah, I don't know. And the fighting has been awesome. And it's kind of like a immature thing to say, but it's true. The fights were so awesome.
In Wano specifically?
Yeah. Just like now that I'm thinking about it, just the whole, what's the name of Kaido's island? Onigashima, yeah. So the whole thing with Onigashima, just the whole party that's going on, like was it the Fire Festival?
Mm-hmm.
Just I remember reading that, and like I just felt like I was there. Like I don't know, like it's drawn so. I don't want to use the word perfectly, but it's so descriptive. Like I felt like I was in those halls, and like I was in the party, and like I'm running with everybody, and I don't know. It's just such a great arc, and then of course. I think my other favorite arc is probably, of course, Paramount War is awesome, but I kind of like Whole Cake Island.
Wow. That's interesting.
I know a lot of people don't really like Whole Cake Island, but I just thought it was cool because you said something that really stuck with me, and it made me realize that you said that Luffy's a great character because he's ruthless, and I would have never really picked up on that unless you kind of pointed that out. You always have a better eye on characters than I do. No. And my favorite moment, I think, in One Piece, I have two favorite moments. Actually, I think like three. One of them is on Whole Cake Island. It's where Luffy challenges Big Mom. So Luffy is to the wall, right? He's nailed to the wall. He can't go anywhere. And he straight up said like Big Mom, like I don't care that you're Yonko. I'll take you down. Like unhook me from this wall right now. And Nami's like, Luffy, stop. Like Luffy starts biting his arms. Like he's about to bite his arms off. Yeah. And he's still gonna fight her. Like it's kind of stupid on his part, but it's ruthless. But it just shows how driven that character is. Like I'd never seen anything like that before.
Yeah. If you remember in Impel Down when Luffy is fighting Magellan for the first time, And Magellan tells him, he's like, if you hit me, whatever limb you hit me with, like, you won't get
Oh,
back.
yeah,
Remember
yeah,
that?
yeah. Yep.
And Luffy's like, I'll sacrifice my arms to take you down. And he hits him with the Gatling. And it's just like, whoa, dude,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
So that's my favorite part of the Whole Cake Island. But back to Wano, just seeing like the red scabbards and seeing them planning, and it was just so exciting. Like every week following that, it's like these plans that they have and the way that they're gonna rebel against Kaido. And I was actually afraid to read it because of how big of a threat Kaido is. He's a juggernaut.
Yeah.
And I'm like, are these people really gonna go after him? Like,
yeah.
It was just so exciting. I mean, every arc is exciting in its own way, but there's something about Wano, I just think, because, as we already said, like, as the story goes on, the stakes are just so high, and now we're finally at this apex of them fighting Yonko. Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I feel like the consistency, if I just jump in real quick, I'm not going to go too far with this, is between Wano and Whole Cake, is they both had kind of this heist attitude to them. Like
yeah,
in the beginning
that.
of Whole Cake, the Straw Hats are meeting with the Beige Capone gang. And they're like, all right, this is what we're going to do. You know what I'm saying? We're going to smash the picture. We're going to make her scream. Then once she screams, we're going to do this. And it's the same exact thing with Wano. It's like, we got to wait for the festival. Then we're going to run up in the house. So yeah, both of those kind of have a heist attitude to them, which is pretty cool.
That's like, it's so exciting. It's like a dream where like you're on the run or something. Like, I love that. I love to read that. I love that danger, because they're in danger. Like, this is like they're in the belly of the beast. This is insane. But yeah, just leading up to it, and then I think, oh my gosh, I think my favorite arc is probably, now that I'm thinking about it, it's not even a full arc, it's just a mini arc, but the Return to Reverie. Those 3 chapters were like 10 out of 10. They were unbelievable, and there was no action. It was just world building.
Yeah.
But it just showed how important world building is to this story and how good Oda is at it.
Yeah, I was floored reading those because I was like, wait, there's going to be even more to this story? You know what I'm saying? Like, Rocks is a whole nother thing, and it's like, how long is it going to take till that gets explored? And then I'm like, dude, like...
Oh, yeah.
Im just makes One Piece like the biggest question mark. Like, I thought, you think you know everything about One Piece until you see a huge straw hat in a freezer.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is going on, dude? What is happening?
Yeah, that was one of the most craziest things in the fandom. Like, no one knew what it was. I thought it was Saul's.
So crazy.
Jaguar D. Saul's, because he's a giant.
Yeah.
But now everyone's thinking it's Joy Boys?
I guess. So, yeah. Again, like, I don't want to distract you too much for your question. You still got to go into like your favorite characters.
Yeah, we could theorize.
But what I'm going to say real quick is that, you know, we have one of the most important islands to go to, one of the most hyped up islands that's been hyped from the very beginning of the series, which is Elbaf, right? Which is the giants, and people are saying that's where we're going to find Shanks at. So yeah, if I think that's the island that we're going to learn about who Joy Boy is, and I think that logic would tell us at this point that he was a giant.
Yeah, that's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are my favorite arcs, but yeah, there were some arcs I just didn't like too. Like, I didn't like Dressrosa. I liked Alabasta. I just didn't like it. And this is another bias thing. I didn't like the setting. I don't like desert, dude. I don't like anything in the desert.
Yeah.
So like, I was just like,
it's definitely not visually interesting for sure. You know.
Yeah. But yeah. All right. So favorite character. My favorite character is probably Nico Robin. I think Nico Robin is my favorite character.
As far as Straw Hats, or just favorite character in general?
I think favorite character in general.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, because there's so many characters I like. Like, I like Odin, dude. Like, again, Odin's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, go through them. Just talk about them all.
Yeah,
ones that are notable.
Nico Robin I think she's one of the most valuable assets to the Straw Hat, because she is with them and she helps them out. One, her devil fruit's freaking sick. 2, she's helping out the Straw Hats reach Laugh-Tale, but she's also on her own voyage, if that makes any sense. She personally wants to figure out the secrets of the world, and I just think that's so cool. Like, her backstory of being the demon child. We don't know. Do we know why she's the demon child? I forget.
I think that the reason why everyone hated her on Ohara is because she had the ability to read the poneglyphs, and therefore indirectly she would have like the ability to activate these weapons.
That's
so
right,
she was seen as dangerous. It's
Yeah.
not that she was a bad person. Aokiji,
the government did. Yeah, they framed her. Yeah.
They demonize her. Aokiji says when he's fighting Luffy, he goes like, the person that she truly is too much for any of you to handle. But I think that was just, you know, her place in the world. She's a very significant character because she can read those things.
Yeah.
And really quickly, I mean, like, one of my favorite things about Robin is the irony of who she is in the story, right? So she's working for Crocodile to activate one of the weapons, to translate one of the poneglyphs. When Crocodile is defeated, she tries to commit suicide. And Luffy is telling her, like, I won't let you die. And she's like, but I want to die. And he's like, it's too... And he actually tells her, it's like, well, it's not up to you. Like, I say you live, so you live, right? And if he didn't do that, he would have completely shot himself in the foot to being Pirate King. Because she becomes the key to unlocking the road poneglyphs, which is how you get to Laugh Tale, which is how you get One Piece, right? So it's such a beautiful thing because he gets stabbed by a crocodile and she just watches and laughs. He could have easily just been like, I don't want to save somebody who like watched me fall into a sand pit as I was bleeding out. But he goes and saves her, and because he does that, he ensures that he'll be king, which is a super cool and ironic twist. But yeah, I like Robin too. I think she's awesome.
So Robin's awesome. I kind of want to jump ahead real fast, like back to Wano. Wano just has so many great parts, and you reminded me of that. And that's when you just said it, like he's gonna be king. But I love that scene where Nami is fighting one of the Toby Roppo, and they're like, say he's not gonna be Pirate King, and Nami's like, he is. You know what I mean? So I just thought that was pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's funny because in the beginning of the Wano arc, Nami and Usopp are talking about what they would do if they were tortured. You know what I'm saying? And then of course, like it's foreshadowing, they end up being tortured. And what I love about that scene. It was hard to watch. I was talking about this in the subreddit. A lot of people were agreeing with me. That was like hard to watch Nami being abused.
Yeah.
But at first when she's getting hit, she's like, I'm sorry. Like, he's just an idiot. Like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like, you know, we'll say whatever you want. And then, like, as it progresses to, like, say he won't be king. Her conviction is so strong that even though she's kind of a coward like Usopp is, it's just something she can't say. Like, she can't physically bring herself to say the words that, like, Luffy won't be Pirate King. She actually says, like, he totally will be. I'm sorry. I think that's the line. And it's just like so cool, you know?
Yeah, it just shows how tight the Straw Hats are. And that's something that people love about them. You know what I mean? I think Jinbei said that, right? He just has this thing where Luffy attracts people.
Yeah, I think it was Mihawk's observation during Paramount, where he says a lot of people don't see the true power of Straw Hat. His true power is everyone he interacts with becomes his friend. And he goes, that's the most fearsome power on the seas. And then the chapter ends with just crazy. Like a shot of Luffy.
And I'm sure Roger had that too.
Yeah, for sure. You know, Roger is supposed to be this kind of projection of Luffy. Specifically in the scene where they first interact with Rayleigh on Sabaody. And Usopp is very curious about what the One Piece is. And he asks Rayleigh, you know, what is the One Piece? And Rayleigh's like, if you really want to know, I'll tell you. And as he starts to answer, Luffy shouts and interrupts him. And he says, an adventure that I know the ending of is not worth going on. He's like, I don't want to know what the One Piece is or even if it exists, which is a really crucial point in the story that he says that. And then when the panel shows Rayleigh looks at Luffy, and then I think Oda gives us an illustration that's next to that panel of Roger. So the whole idea is that the way that Luffy is personality-wise is supposed to be exactly the way Roger was.
Yeah, and we learned that too recently with, I think it was like, I don't know if it was Chapter 1000 or 999 or something like that, but Luffy said the same thing that Roger said to Odin and Whitebeard about his dream, and we still don't know what that is. He's like, I'm going to be... And I remember reading that. I thought he said he was going to live forever. That's what I thought it was. And it could be that, but I don't think it's that anymore.
Yeah, and I always believe that scene is that he's going to be king of the pirates. Oda kind of has this reverence for who and what characters can say that. So with Gold Roger, I just got the sense that for some reason the only time that he wanted the reader to see read Gold Roger saying that was in the very beginning of the series. So when Luffy says it, he can say it because that's kind of his catchphrase.
Yeah.
But if Roger says it in a flashback, we as the audience are supposed to know that line is so iconic that it's just reserved for the beginning of the series. It's almost like unspeakable at this point.
It's so strange to see like the Yonko say it too. You know what I mean? It's so weird because it kind of sounds like this boyhood dream in a way, but it's not. You know what I mean? Like, what is it about this One Piece? Is it the title? Is it the actual treasure?
So yeah, before we dive into that,
we're getting all over.
No, it's cool. Yeah, I'll just add on to that really quickly. So a lot of things are very interesting about that, right? In the arc, I don't know how to say the name of the restaurant, the Brady, the floating restaurant where Chef Zeph works. We have that scene where Zoro gets defeated by Mihawk. And Zoro makes this big proclamation that he'll never lose again to Luffy. And so that draws Mihawk's attention to Luffy, and then he turns to Luffy and he goes, "What are your ambitions?" Because this guy wants to be the best swordsman in the world. What do you want to be? And he goes, "I want to be the king." That's all he says. So great. He doesn't even say pirate king. He just says, "I want to be the king." And Mihawk immediately knows what he means. And he goes, "That's even crazier than what this guy is saying." And it's like, whoa, you know?
Wow,
That's
yeah.
the first time we're really introduced to like the scale of what he's trying to accomplish. And then everybody who hears him say that, it's almost like him swearing. The reaction is so like, whoa, you know? And it just gets crazier and crazier and crazier to the point where he says it to the two Yonko, and they actually get angry with him for saying that.
Yeah.
Which, again, is very reminiscent of what it's like in real life to know yourself and to proclaim your dreams. Not everyone is going to react positively. Most people are going to look at you like that's kind of crazy. But, yeah, man, so before we jump into that, is there any more of your favorite characters? Like...
Yeah, I'll just breeze through it. I mean, it's Robin number one, and then I love Luffy, but he is an exception.
Yeah, I think everyone's like everyone's favorite characters is Luffy. Yeah.
I don't know. There's just so many great characters. Like I really like Shanks, but the thing is, like, we don't know enough about him, and I think that's one of his like biggest draws is that.
Yeah, I think we know enough about him. Again, like I love. We don't know a lot, but we know enough.
But
so
like, when did he become a Yonko?
Yeah, we don't know anything about that. I mean, like his personality. So again, like I'm all about contrast, dude. The thing that got me hooked to One Piece as a kid, I started reading One Piece when I was in 4th grade, was the line that Shanks says when one of his crewmates kills the mountain bandits that were terrorizing Mako's bar. Because they thought he was a pushover. They beat him up in the very beginning of
Luffy
One
got
Piece.
mad, yeah.
Luffy gets mad because he goes, "What kind of man won't fight?"
Yeah.
And Shanks pretty much tells him, like, "Dude, no one got hurt. Like, I got soaked with beer. Everything's okay, man. Like, everything's going to be fine." And he's like, "You're a coward. Like, no real man would ever do that." So then Luffy gets kidnapped by the bandits. And we see the very first death in One Piece, which is one of the bandits' henchmen, who's presumably a young man, gets shot in the head.
Yeah, in the head,
dies.
yeah.
And we see the bandit who was so hardcore have an adverse reaction to this. And Ben Beckham says, "You're dealing with pirates here, not saints." And then the shot goes to Shanks, and Shanks goes, which this is the premise of his character, right? Like, this is the identity of his character. He goes, "You can hit me and mock me all you want." He goes, "But if you do that to my friends, I can't forgive it." So it's like, wow, here we have this guy who not only was on Gold Roger's ship, not only was he beholden to the people who saw the One Piece, even though he didn't see it himself, not only does he have the straw hat that Gold Roger actually wore, but he's a guy that if you disrespect him, he doesn't do anything. He'll only do something if someone he loves gets disrespected. That's why I love Shanks.
Yeah.
I love him just for that. I love him just for that.
That is hardcore.
He shows up to Paramount War, and the thing that gets him to act is Kobe's speech. Because he doesn't want to see Akainu hurt Kobe after what he said. And then he just stands there and he's like, if anybody has a problem with like what he just said and you want to fight, like, we can fight. That's what he is. You know?
And then everyone's afraid of him. No one wants to fight against him.
Great line by Mihawk. So Mihawk's walking away.
Yeah.
And one of the Navy admirals goes like, "Come back here." And he goes, "I only agreed to fight Whitebeard." He goes, "Fighting Shanks is a completely different endeavor."
That's just so crazy.
It's so cool. It's very, very cool because the whole series we've been beholden to Mihawk's power, and to be like, wow, it can get crazier than him. You know, again, very good. I'd say momentum building writing wise.
And remember, it was Shanks that stopped Kaido from coming to what was it, Impel Down, right? That's where Ace was. So why would Kaido want to go there? I mean, we could theorize till the cows come home, and I would love to do that, but we'd be on here for hours. So favorite characters: Nico, Robin, Shanks, Blackbeard, love him. I think he's awesome, and I guess that's it. I like Dragon too. I think Dragon's really, really cool.
Yeah, Dragon's awesome.
I mean, we could totally get into like that.
He controls the weather.
Do you think that they're going to get their own arc, or do you think they're just like a part of the story?
I don't think Dragon's going to get his own arc. I think he's just a part of the story. I just, it would just make it'd be so nostalgic and satisfying for like my inner child to see Dragon and Luffy finally meet.
That'd be crazy.
Because I remember when I was reading One Piece when I was very young, like that's all I wanted to see. Like I was like, whoa, like this is his dad. I was like, man, I just like I want to see them meet, you know?
Yeah. I remember that reveal too. Reading that, I think it was volume 52. It was in. I remember I read that. I was like, this is awesome. This is so awesome.
I remember when I was at like fourth grade, they only had up to volume 12 out in the United States. So that's just when Dragon's introduced. So I was like, man, who is this guy? And when I found out that he was Luffy's dad, I was like, I want them to meet so bad. And what's awesome, it's been 1,000 chapters and they haven't met yet. Yeah. And it's like their meeting is going to be very interesting.
But they know of each other. You know what I mean? Luffy, not so much. He's like super, like he doesn't really care. Remember what does he say? He goes, I have a dad? That's a great line.
Yeah, that is a great line. He has Luffy has a lot of great lines and just great moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know, you didn't even dive into why you like Blackbeard, and he's like one of the most important characters in the series.
I like Blackbeard because again, this is another perspective you gave me. It's an anti-Luffy, and I think that is so cool. You know what I mean? Because they both have the same goal, but they are trying to achieve it in completely different manners. Yeah. Luffy's doing it as a noble person, kind of selfish in his own way, in like a slight own way, but he's still noble as all heck. Blackbeard just doesn't care. He's underhanded. Even Shanks like warned Whitebeard about it, and it's kind of bad, but like I kind of like to root for the villains in the sense that I like to see what they're gonna do. So I think he's one of my favorite characters, and I love his design. I think he's sick. Like his new design too with the beard, the actual Blackbeard, so awesome, so awesome.
Yeah, man, he's based off a real life person, just like Law is based off a real life person. So those are two really great characters.
Oh, last favorite character, Garp.
Yeah,
I love Garp. Super funny, super strong. He loves Luffy and them. I love seeing him like shed tears over them, and even Ace too. Like, I think Garp is in my top 3. So Nico, Robin, probably Shanks, and then Garp. So no, okay. This is my definitive top 3, and then we'll move on. So it's Nico, Robin, it's Odin, and then it is Garp. I think Odin is such a cool character because he is like a superhero, and then it kind of brings out the little kid in me. Like you see these big, strong people, and you kind of warm up to them. You know what I mean? And he just wanted to go on adventures, and I just think that's so, and like I could kind of relate to that. And then he just someone that I really warmed up to. And then of course he's badass, you know what I mean? He's insane. And then the part, it was very powerful. And I remember just watching it and reading it, where he goes into the hot pot, right? They're gonna boil him alive in oil, and he held up everybody. And it was kind of watched because it felt like it was dehumanizing him, and I don't like to see when people get dehumanized, but he took it like he's like, if I hold them, what was it, for like an hour or like some crazy time?
Yeah, you'll let them go.
Yeah, and he did that, you know, till the very end. He was just such a hero. I love that about him. So yeah, Odin's my number 2, and then Garp. Yeah, I just think Garp's history, and then reading about the Rocks Pirates and him and Roger teaming up, dude, that is so cool. Again, that's my favorite thing about One Piece is the lore. Like I love that. Like it's Garp and Roger fighting 3 Yonko plus Rox D. Zebek, who we know nothing about, which is like, is he stronger than Kaido? Is he like, again, like the possibilities are endless, and that's what is again, like to close it home, that's my favorite thing about One Piece is the intrigue and speculating. So 1,000 chapters later, we're still doing it, and it's so awesome.
With that being said, what are you speculating? Like, what theories do you have, if any? If that's a loaded question, then
no,
we can kind of go through it together. But like, is there anything at the top of your head that like you're expecting or that you want to see?
So we're at chapter 1,000 right now. So chapter 1001. So we're gonna see. Okay, so speculation time. This is gonna be awesome. All right, so chapter 1001. We are watching the worst generation, or 3 of them, right? 3 or 4 of them fighting the Yonko. So I was reading it, and I don't know. Stop me if you think I'm wrong. I think Shanks is probably going to come in.
Well, I mean, Oda explicitly said that. But I mean, he never explicitly said when, but he did say that Shanks is going to come in. I feel like that'd be too much.
You think so?
Yeah. Already, like, this is blowing my mind. What's happening is like just way too crazy. I feel like it would be just like unrealistically crazy if for some reason Shanks showed up. I think at the end of this arc we're gonna have like a Shanks tease maybe. But maybe you're wrong, because Oda specifically said that like he's gonna do something. But
yeah, he's on the move. That's what Oda said. He's on the move.
Yeah,
But does anybody know that they're in Wano right now? Because it's closed off from the world. Like, is that in the newspaper?
Well, remember that scene in Wano in the beginning where everyone has like those confused faces that like the arc is known for?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like a paper was circulating that he had arrived there. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
And like that's the face that everybody made. So I think it's pretty well known that he's there at this point.
Oh yeah, man. There was that one chapter at the beginning of it was Blackbeard knew about it. He was on the one island, the Pirate Paradise, and he's like, "Did you see the news?" And he was just like explaining everything. He's like, "Big Mom's going to Wano, Straw Hat's there, this, that, and the other thing." And he was like, "The big names are duking it out for the throne." He's like, "What's gonna happen? It's so exciting." So
yeah.
I think Shank's gonna be there. I'm not set on it, but I wouldn't rule it out. So that's what I think is gonna happen in the story going forward.
Yeah.
Do you think that they're gonna win? Do you think they're gonna beat Kaido and Big Mom? Was it Law Kid, Killer, Zoro, and Luffy are fighting them, right?
Yeah. So I think that. Well, first off, there's a little foreshadowing in this chapter when Zoro and Killer leap at Kaido to try and decapitate him. Really awesome shot where they show that their blade just made a mark.
Yeah.
And Zoro says, I have to use more of Enma's power, which has to be foreshadowing, right? We've already heard that blade is going to be the blade that like slices the dragon. So in my opinion, with that...
It did. This is the one Odin used.
Right. And like now it's, pretty...
In his hands, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that foreshadowing is so heavy that he has to... like Kaido has to get beat. I feel like my theory of him falling into the water is wrong now. That scene pretty much confirmed to me that he will have to get cut by that blade at some point. The problem is I just don't see the Straw Hats killing a character, so I think they're just gonna like cut him and beat him somehow. But like, yeah, they don't murder. That's usually not their MO.
I think Kaido's gonna die. I think he's gonna die, and he's gonna be like happy about it. Because remember, what did we first meet Kaido? Trying to kill himself.
That would be the first time that a One Piece character ever gets killed by a Straw Hat. But yeah, that would be amazing if it did happen, and if he was happy, I think that'd be very, very fitting. But I think that Big Mom is going to get away. So I think what's going to happen is that there's going to be some sort of split where Big Mom is going to run, and for some reason they have to pursue her. So half of them are going to go to chase Big Mom, and then the other half are going to stay and fight Kaido. Because I think that the way that the fight scene is right now, it's too messy for Oda to handle for too long. Like, we had this really weird scene where, like I guess Zoro and Killer jumped back, and then Kid, Law, and Luffy just, like, attacked Kaido. Like, there's too much moving pieces. So I think what's going to happen is next chapter we're going to cut back to what's going on underground.
Dude, I hope not.
We have to. There's already too much buildup. Everyone already had someone to fight, so we're gonna have to cut that back to that for a little bit.
Dude, that's what's gonna happen
and
too.
Then, then I think we're gonna cut off the island, maybe to Shanks, and then then I think we're gonna cut back to the fight. There's gonna be a little more of that fighting, and then for some reason there's gonna have to be a split, because I'm just not sure for how long Oda can draw a fight with so many moving pieces like that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's different in Paramount War because everyone's fighting each other, but it's like 4 characters trying to fight 2. It just doesn't seem to be like working. I don't know, pacing wise.
Do you think Kaido is stronger as a dragon or in his human form?
I'll probably say stronger as a dragon. And in the very beginning of that arc where he blows up Odin's castle by using his breath, and he just kind of did it effortlessly. Like when he was drunk, it's like, whoa, that's what he can do. He can just shoot like a cannon from his mouth. You're like, dang. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen directly, but there's a really interesting theory about... oh,
yeah, you were talking about that one theory. Oh, yeah, so we should talk about just, like, the long... I guess the long run of the series.
Yeah, I was going to transition into that. So, yeah, I mean, Joy Boy, who's a big reviewer on YouTube...
Oh, Joy Boy Theories. Hey, YouTube, Joy Boy here.
Yeah, as well as...
Tekking's the one dude I watch.
Yeah.
Because he's like a One Piece like aficionado.
There's a lot, man, and Oda watches them too, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
So what I think is, Joy Boy had this theory that insignia that's on the hawk symbol,
like the fire dove thing. Yeah.
It's the circle surrounded by the 9 little circles. Is the whole Norse mythology thing, where there's the great tree, and then there's the different 9 realms around that tree. So that's what the big circle represents, and the 9 little circles represent the 9 different realms. So what Joy Boy says, and I think this is pretty far-fetched, and I don't think this is what Oda's intending, is that, the 9 realms are literally different worlds. Like, we're talking outer space. And that's where the different races came from. So, like, the minks, the fishmen, they all came from different worlds, which is already, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I don't like that, dude. That's too much.
And that Im is one of those different races. And that what the One Piece is actually something that unites those 9 different realms. And so it has to do with that tree of life that we saw in the Big Mom flashback, which is this huge, giant, grand tree, which is like the point that the 9 realms are going to be united because of the One Piece. I personally think that the One Piece is this. It's just something that destroys the red line so that the ocean is just one thing. And that would fit within Luffy's definition, because everyone's always like, Luffy, why do you want to be king of the pirates? Because he goes, the king of the pirates is the freest person in the world. So being able to sail without any sort of restriction on the water is the One Piece. It's a uniting of the entire ocean, and I think that that's really cool. So I hope that's what the One Piece is.
I think that was the most sound theory until we saw Roger look at it, because Roger saw the One Piece and he laughed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, dude, it could be like a drawing that Joy Boy did or something like that, or just like his story or something like that. It's got to be something funny. You know what I mean? I think the uniting all oceans, I think up until that point that was the One Piece, but as of now I don't think that's what it is anymore.
Well, it's not clear exactly what he was looking at. Like, maybe he was looking at a demonstration or like a model of what would happen once that detonation was done, and like what the world would look like, and maybe that just made him laugh in like almost disbelief. Like, I think the laughing in Laugh Tale isn't necessarily meant to be so literal as much as it is that they were just so overwhelmed with joy, because like they were laughing and crying, you know what I'm saying? Which is like, dude, this is like, it's just, I don't know. I guess it'd be akin to taking psychedelics, where you're just like, oh my gosh, like what? I don't even know, man. And just like start crying. Like, I feel like that's what it is. It's something that's just mind blowing. I didn't, when I read that, I didn't see it as comedic. That's why I got so emotional when I read it. 'Cause I was like, dude, here's this guy that's dying, and his whole crew is like, I can't believe like our captain's gonna die. This really sucks. Yeah. And like, it was really weighing down on them. And then when they saw it, it alleviated all that angst. Like, so whatever the One Piece is, it just brings unmitigated joy.
It's that's a good take, but I still stand by it's actually just something that's
funny.
Yeah, I that's what
that'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd definitely be an Oda type twist. I like that.
And that's what I think it is. And I think it's like everybody has this like idea of what it is, and then they actually find it, and it's like
something very simple,
something stupid. You know what I mean? Something that only means something to
the
Joy
person
Boy.
who finds it. Yeah.
I remember
I actually like that theory way better.
Yeah,
it's something that's like, it's sentimental value, but the fact that they made it that far means that they now have the title. Mm-hmm. Like, it's theirs now.
Yeah. Like, before Roger, I'm sure there wasn't any King of the Pirates. You know what I mean? He made that, and then what was it? The King of the Pirates is the person who conquers the Grand Line.
They've sailed the entire world.
They sailed the entire world.
So yeah, there hasn't been one island that they haven't touched.
And then Laugh Tale is the last one, and that's okay. So yeah, I mean, yeah, but yeah, before Roger, I don't think there was a King of the Pirates. I think it was the newspaper that made him the King of the Pirates. You know what I mean? So like, it was like Morgan. Well, no, what's that guy's name? Big News. Like, he's the one who called Luffy the 5th Emperor. So
do you know that he's not actually a mink? He's actually a zoan fruit user.
I thought he was just like some animal.
Nah, so like, he's actually a zoan fruit user.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
wow.
He uses the Alabtros zoan fruit.
How do you know that? Was it an SBS?
No, it was like in some sort of atlas, like some sort of like, it's never explicitly mentioned in the manga.
Of course, that's so funny. That's so funny. But yeah, so yeah, I think I remember you and I in the summer, and I wish we had a microphone to talk about it, but we really, really went into One Piece.
Did we? I don't even remember.
We did, dude. We went really into it, and there was a lot of great points. And then there was one thing I came up with, and I still think it's a pretty good idea. I think the story is still going to go on when Luffy finds the One Piece. I don't think it's going to end then. I think he's going to find the One Piece first, And then that's when Im's going to get involved. Something's going to happen. I don't think the story's going to be like, oh, we found the One Piece, that's it, the end. It's not going to be like that. I think from what we've seen, there's just too much of the world and of the characters that, you know what I mean? Because how many road poneglyphs do they need?
4.
4.
There's 1 for each emperor.
So 1 for each emperor, yeah. So they're going to get them, and then we still have this new looming threat. We have Im to deal with. And this is my theory, and I think it's a pretty popular one. Everything's going to happen. Big Mom, Kaido, they're going to get gone. Shanks is going to do something with Luffy. They're not, I don't know, hope he's not a villain. And then it's going to be Luffy versus Blackbeard, and that's what you think is going to be the end. My theory is this, and I'm so excited for years down the line, we're going to look back and listen to everything we talked about. I think Luffy and Blackbeard are going to team up, and they're going to fight Im. That's what I think is going to happen. I think it's going to happen because we see Im walking in that big garden, which is such a great scene
With the butterflies, yeah.
Yeah, and on the ground there's pictures of Luffy, Blackbeard, and Vivi. I don't know why Vivi.
And King Nefertiti.
I still don't know everything. I have to reread everything about Vivi, but it's Luffy and Blackbeard. So they're D members, but why is it only them two? Because they're the highest profile? I don't know. But that means that they are targets. The Gorosei, they're going to target them in whatever way they can. So how can they defeat the people targeting them? They're going to team up. So
that would be interesting. Yeah,
I think
all the surviving Ds end up fighting the celestial dragons, because that's what Im, I think, is foreshadowed to be, is that he is whatever the celestial dragon bloodline is. He is the purveyor of that.
Yeah.
You know, and the Gorosei serve what he is.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's very, very interesting that there's sort of this like antichrist character that's introduced really late into One Piece, and that the Gorosei, who we've been familiar with, and we've seen the whole series, all bow and answer to this thing. This shadow.
You think they're the whole time. You're like, who? Well, first off, you're like, who the heck are these guys? You know what I mean? Who are these guys? And then we're like, okay, these are kind of the guys that pull the strings. And now we have like the real puppeteer that's revealed. Like we said it earlier, but that really is probably the most significant chapter in One Piece thus far.
Chapter 908. It's like, yeah, man, that chapter turns the whole series on its head.
It shook the whole thing, dude. Crazy.
As you're reading, you're like, there's enough final bad guys that like we're pretty confident on like who the big ones are to beat.
Exactly.
And then it's just like, then there's just this thing, this shadow looming over all of it.
If Im never came into the picture, I think it would end when Luffy got the One Piece, but that's not when it's going to end, in my opinion. I think the story's going to go on. I also think, and I just thought about this as we were talking, I think there's going to be a new Luffy. I think there's going to be a new Luffy. Like, the Straw Hat is just going to keep getting passed on.
I think so, too. I think it has to, according to what this series has been saying so far. Yeah, that there has to be a new guy. Does that mean that Luffy gets executed? Really interesting question.
I think Luffy's going to get sick.
I don't know. He never gets sick. There's a scene where they're in Drum Island and like Nami is getting sick, and like I think like she asked for like a remedy or something, and it's really funny. Like Luffy goes, "I've never gotten sick in my life." And Sanji's like, "Me neither." And Usopp's like, "I've never gotten sick either." And she's like, "What's wrong with you guys?" Like, so I can't see someone as youthful and as powerful as him getting sick, but I could see him getting executed.
But did they think about that happening to Roger? Like, we don't even know what Roger's illness is.
Roger's a lot older than Luffy. He was like in his he was middle-aged. So I feel like that was in part Oda picked that with his character. Luffy is like 20, 21, like he's a pretty young guy. And he's going to find the One Piece at a pretty young age. He's going to become King of the Pirates way younger than Roger did it.
I just think somewhere down the line. I think, again, like, I think it might have this, like, after, like, all these years later, like,
yeah, it might
happen.
That's been like a big question for me. When One Piece is at its end, is after everything settles down, the big final battle and all that's done, is it going to shoot forward and show us like what happens like years and years, like after that whole thing was relevant?
Yeah.
But I really, really don't know. All I know is that Luffy has so many people to confront. He has to confront Akainu for what he did to Ace. He has to confront Blackbeard.
Oh, I forgot about that. I forgot about that confrontation. Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. It's like, is there even going to be a confrontation? Like, when Luffy has the chance to get revenge, is he going to be vengeful? Like, that's the whole thing. Or is there going to be a moment where Akainu is in a perilous situation and Luffy shows his unmitigated strength and helps the person who murdered his brother. Like, what is going to be their final interaction? We don't know. I think what Oda is leading us to believe is that there's going to be a fight, obviously. But I think in the classic style of Oda that's not going to be the case. Because, Luffy's had to come to reconcile with his loss. And even though he's mad and hates Akainu, I'm not sure if he's a vengeful guy. Even though he is ruthless. Luffy's a ruthless dude. I'm just not sure that he's vengeful. So I'm very curious about how their final interaction has to go. But yeah, Luffy has to fight Blackbeard. It just has to happen.
I can't think of a part in the story where Luffy was vengeful if it wasn't like happening in the moment, like when he fought Arlong.
The one thing he did do is Kabaji, which is one of not Kabaji, I think it was Moji or Mochi, one of Buggy's mates, when he burned down the store that the dog owned, remember?
Oh, yeah, and it stood in front of it.
And Luffy grabs him and punches him in the face because he's so upset that he would do that to the owner's store. Mm-hmm. That was the only time I've seen Luffy vengeful.
Do you think Akainu would antagonize Luffy? I feel like that might...
He tried to kill him. He tried to kill him. So if it wasn't for Jinbei, Luffy would have been dead because Akainu was targeting him too. So I feel like he's going to try and initiate a fight. But I just think that Luffy is so morally superior to the Navy and what they stand for that at this point in the story, like, fighting them would be stooping down to their level almost. So I don't know how Oda's going to handle that. And that's the best thing about One Piece is, like, I'm super curious about it.
Yes,
like,
it's the most fun about
Sheldon's reading through One Piece, and he's like, oh, let me guess, like, the 7 warlords represent the 7 sins. I was like, no, dude. I was like, in any lesser series, like, yeah, that would be the case. But no, like, it's actually way more complex than that.
I think what's going on with the warlords right now is really cool. It's
they're defunct.
They're gone. So now they're being sought after. They're being chased, which is awesome.
Yeah, which is super cool. Shanks, Hawkeye says, it's been a while since I've been pursued. Like, it's like making him excited, like for once he gets to actually be an outlaw again, like a true outlaw.
I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Hawkeye is one of the most underrated characters.
Oh yeah, I think so.
He's so awesome. He's so badass, and we don't really know anything about him. Like,
that's another fight that has to happen, where it's like Zoro has to fight Hawkeye before.
You think that'll be on screen or off screen?
It's definitely gonna be on screen. But I think it's gonna be resolved very quickly. Like, I don't think it's gonna be a fight. It's gonna be like almost like a draw of swords, and like, you're wondering who's going to come out on top. That classic, like, after the two pass each other, like, who got hit. And, like, I think you're going to see Zoro got hit, and everyone's going to be like, what? Like, no way. Like, even after all that, like, he beat him, and then, like, Zoro's going to, like, almost fall. And then the exact same thing's going to happen with Katakuri and Luffy, where it's, like, they both get up, but Katakuri's the one that, like, falls completely. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's what's going to happen.
Totally forgot about that fight. Oh, my
Katakuri?
Gosh. Yeah. Totally forgot about that fight.
Amazing character details that Oda gives, where he's just like, this is a man whose back has never touched the ground in his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's so funny and so Japanese. And then you see in the fight, like, no matter how he falls, like, he won't fall on his back.
Yeah. I remember there was a time where I thought that Katakuri could beat Whitebeard.
Yeah, a lot of people thought that Katakuri was the son of Kaido, and that's just been confirmed that that's not the case.
I think what made me think that was that hockey ability where he could see into the future. I was like, this is like game over. I was like, how can anybody do that? And then another great part about Wano is Luffy is now getting these abilities. So Luffy's just getting stronger and stronger, and it happened chapter 1001 where Kaido swung that thing, like the Thunder Clash or whatever it is, and Luffy got hit by it, and he's like... He's like, damn, he's like, even though I could see into the future, he's still fast. Cool. And I was like, okay.
See, I think that was a missed opportunity with that scene, because I think, like, Luffy shook it off too quickly, because in the beginning of the arc, that takes him out in one hit, and he's at Gear 4, and now, like, it hits him full force just like it did before, but he's just kind of like, man, I still can't get it. Like, what I wanted to see that be more dramatic. Like, I wanted Luffy to get up off the ground and there just be blood on his face. And so, like, we know that he got hit, but he just, like, looks at Kaido. And Kaido's like, I can't believe this. Like, I just hit him full force and he's back up. Like, wasn't it just like days ago that I hit him like this and he was unconscious? How did he take that? You know what I'm saying? And I wanted that to be the moment, but instead, like, Luffy kind of shrugs it off, which I was like, all right, Oda, like, what am I supposed to? He really got that strong while he was in the prison that, like, it doesn't hurt him at all. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, if we look back, he was like really practicing that hockey with that guy. So
I guess.
I mean, I don't know, but I think that was another cool way to showcase Kaido's power. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
that he's super big, but he can also move like incredibly fast.
He's quicker than time. Essentially, that's what he's saying. He's like, Luffy can see into the future, but he's still slow. He's like, he still can't defend it or deflect it.
What was interesting about that is like he could see that it was going to happen, but like he would never be fast enough to prevent it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What's really awesome is that the observation hockey where they can see the future is like introduced as soon as we meet Rayleigh. I'm not sure if you remember the scene, but it is the slave auction at Sabaody when Rayleigh comes out from behind the curtain. And he goes, what's going on here? Like, what's going on? Because the fish tank that Kami was in was cut in half. And, you know, you had that dead guy on the stage and the celestial dragon got punched. And he's like, what's going on here? And somebody starts to explain. And he goes, don't say anything. He goes, I can figure it out myself. And he just looks around. And then what we realize is that he's seeing what's about to happen. So then he understands, like, what it is.
What the heck?
Yeah. And then he looks at, this is a really, really great exchange. He looks at Luffy and he goes, that straw hat that you're wearing is fitting for a man like you, because he understands like what Luffy's about to do.
Yeah.
Really, really cool.
And I remember he even shed a few tears, right? Seeing Luffy and hearing Luffy say these things. He's like, you're Roger, essentially.
Well, yeah, that was after the time skip where Luffy beats the pacifista. Another just great real life parallel where it's like there's a setback that and a failure that you met, and so you take time to work on yourself, and then you're met with that exact obstacle again 2 years later, but this time you've learned. And so like that epic battle that Luffy had with Kuma where it was like impossible to defeat him, he one-shots the pacifista by himself because he's gotten that much stronger.
Yeah.
And then he just tells Rayleigh that he's like, I'm gonna be king of the pirates, and that's what makes Rayleigh cry, because it reminds him of his friend. Like he was just like, dude, like the guy who just recruited me to be on his ship, who was my best friend and I was his first mate, like that's exactly what he said to me. And like that's such a beautiful part because like it makes him cry, because he's not crying because he's so moved by Luffy. He's crying because he misses Roger. Like, I think
absolutely.
That's what's really, really cool, you know?
And I guess he loved Roger's dream. You know what I mean? He loved being able to go on that and to see that continued again. That overall theme of One Piece, the will, the lingering will.
Yeah. Well, just think about like Zoro and Luffy. Like that's the kind of relationship that they had, where it's just they were like, it's somebody devotes themselves to another person's dream, like, which is really, really weird. But like, you know, obviously Zoro wants to be the best swordsman in the world, but his primary objective is like to make sure that Luffy becomes the pirate king. Like,
like that's what we were saying with. I mean, everyone has a dream, right? It's like, what is it? Robin wants the history of the world. Nami wants
to make a
map of the world.
A map of the world, to make a chart of the ocean. Yeah.
What was Usopp's?
So Usopp's is the best. Like Usopp said, I want to be a brave warrior of the sea.
Oh,
and what's cool is that he's already done that.
Yeah.
Sanji wanted to find the all blue, and he's already found that. You know, he wanted to make a restaurant in the all blue. So of course, at the end of One Piece, he's gonna have his restaurant.
Yeah. What if like Luffy came in or something like that, like old?
That might be how it ends. Like
probably
they all come in
like
at a bar or something like that. And yeah,
I feel like Zoro's gonna be like isolated or something, kind of like a Mihawk thing.
He might be the new Mihawk, but I think that this is a really wild theory, and if I listen to this episode in 2025 and it's true, then so be it. I'll stop us at 9. I'll stop us in 10 minutes.
No,
I don't want to go too long. So I think that Kunea, or whatever her name is, the girl that dies in the beginning of One Piece that inspires Zoro, I feel like she doesn't die. I feel like she actually survived. That hit on her head gave her a little bit of amnesia, and I truly believe that she is Tashigi. And I believe that Tashigi and Zoro are going to reunite. And I think that, I mean, it might be a romance, even though romance isn't a big thing in One Piece. I feel
it's not.
I feel like that, you know, something between him and Tashigi is going to happen. So I could definitely see him with Tashigi in the future. They're two kindred souls for sure.
I didn't think that because of how obvious it is, but I think maybe Oda like knew how long the story was going to be, and then you're going to be like, oh crap, it was her all along. But I mean, I didn't subscribe to that theory at first, but now I kind of do. Now I'm like, okay, that makes sense. That'd be a nice.
I could be completely wrong. I kind of hope I'm wrong because I don't really want that to be right, but I see the writing on the wall with that one.
What if like it's like he sees her again, and then like it's like a shot of like her, and then like behind her is like a like a shadow, or not a shadow, but like a ghost of that girl. So it's like, huh.
Spooky ghost.
Yeah, so it wasn't you, huh?
Yeah. So like a spiritual. I could see something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Frankie's dream is to build a ship that sails the entire world. So
And that's what we're gonna do.
just
yeah.
being on the Sunny is part of his. Brooke is to see Laboon again. So
Yeah.
in order for them to, so you're right. They have to go back around after they hit Laugh-Tail. They have to go over the other side of the globe. So
and Jinbei's dream is to see Luffy be Pirate King, right? Isn't that his thing?
I don't know what his dream is. I think that he doesn't have a dream because he's gonna die. I mean, he is. That's something I think about all the time. It's like, I don't know, is that accepted knowledge? Like, if I went on the subreddit, would people be talking about that? The fact that he had to sacrifice something to leave Big Mom's crew, it had to be his lifespan because he wasn't missing any of his limbs. He obviously isn't dead. So it's like, he must have took a drastic cut to his lifespan. So I think that's going to be one of the knife twists later on in One Piece where Jinbei actually has to die. It's going to be sad, too, because he's such a respectable character. All the characters that you love in One Piece, by the way, are intentionally made that way. They're all selfless. Like, that's the thing. The ones that you really love and respect, like, they're all very, very selfless characters.
Yeah, I like to see, again, like, the backstory. I like to see how the characters become that way, like, either good or bad. And, like, we learn why characters become selfless.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
Or bitter, Like,
yeah.
I think it's really amazing to see Arlong in the beginning of the series.
Oh,
and then we see like, what he went through later. Or, I think the most haunting one is Doflamingo, a guy who literally wants to destroy the world. That was his whole goal, is that he wanted to destroy the world. And we see him like strung outside of his apartment with his dad and his brother. And
he was he was born into this family.
He's just
it's
like,
like
I want to kill
yeah.
everyone. Like, that's all he's saying is like, I want to kill and torture everybody. And what's amazing is that he wakes up from that dream like sweating, and he goes right back to just being like cool, calm, and calculated.
That is good.
Oda does a really good like job of showing us the motivations of these characters.
One Piece did something that I never thought was possible in like a manga or kind of like any story. And then, because it was the only, like, the second manga I ever got into, but that idea of reintroducing characters. Like, because of Dragon Ball, it's like, oh, we have a villain, they're dead, that's it. But One Piece, it's like, we saw Arlong again. Like, I would never expect that to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's awesome.
Well, how about running into Hachi on Sabaody? Like, did you really expect him to be there? You know what I'm saying? Like, out of all the characters that could have been there, like, you expected him, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like Crocodile too, like he was an impel down. Like I in the jail cell, like I didn't expect that.
Or Spandam. Like, why would Spandam be around? Like, why would CP9 be around? That is something I look forward to too. Like, out of the, I think it's over 1,000 characters that Oda's introduced so far. I was reading this on the site. I think it's interesting which ones he chooses to bring back into the fold.
How come not Arlong? I felt like Arlong's popular. He's like my favorite villain.
Man, that fight scene between him and Luffy is, it's
a classic.
Yeah, it's one of the best ever. Why not bring Arlong back? I don't know.
Is he reserved? I remember when Wano was happening. Remember that like figure in the cell only had eyes. I remember like people were speculating who it was. I thought it was Arlong.
Yeah, I thought it was a character that we'd all recognize too, but it turned out to be a new character, which is fine. But yeah, I'm always curious to see like which ones he decides to bring back. But there's so much to look forward to. Like, at one point, Usopp is going to meet his dad. He's going to meet Yasopp, which is the sharpshooter on Shanks' crew. Like, how is that going to go down? It's just like there's so many twists and turns to look forward to.
It's interesting to see like what characters on Shanks' crew are going to be the counterparts of Luffy's character. Like, who's going to be the Zoro?
Right. Well,
Isn't
Ben
it that
Beckham
guy Ben Beckham?
Ben
right?
Beckham is the first mate, so he's kind of like the Zoro to Shanks.
That's so weird. It's like, we know these characters' names, but we don't know anything about them.
Well, I always say the genius, and I think the genius, but the genius of that is it's shown to us in ways that are nonverbal. So remember in the Paramount War when Shanks shows up to end it, Ben Beckham points a gun at Kizaru, who we know at this point in the story can turn himself into the light, but he puts his hands up because for some reason the way that Ben Beckham would shoot him would actually kill him. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, whoa, so what about this guy makes him so powerful? Yeah. And he actually says, he's like, oh, you're Ben Beckham. Like, you would never expect Kizaru to be threatened by a gun, but because it's in the hands of that guy, that makes it dangerous. So I love how Oda does that. Like, he tells us about the character without actually telling us about the character. Like, a storm happens and everybody leaves Rogetown or Logetown, whatever it's called, and Smoker goes, why are you helping them, Dragon? And it's like, wait a second, can he control the weather?
That's what it is, dude, yeah.
I love when Oda does it without explicitly telling us. I think that's the best thing ever.
And you put the pieces together. Dude, that's so fun.
They teach this in, I took a bunch of writing classes, writing for media when I was in school. The one thing they teach for everything, for books, for movies, for shows, show don't tell. Like, if you can show it without explicitly saying it, it always hits the audience harder.
Yeah.
Always,
I just, dude, like, honestly, I could make theories all night long. Like, I just came up with one.
Let's go. Let's get into some last ones. I don't want to hold you for too long. We'll end after this.
Fine. I'm totally fine. This is what's fun about One Piece. This is why One Piece is so awesome. It's because you can have discussions like this.
Yeah.
I had one theory, and it's just, like, so crazy. I was thinking about Shanks again, like, the mystique of his crew. Like, the history between Mihawk and Shanks, like, okay, so let's say that Shanks leaves Roger's crew, right?
Yeah.
Like, when did he form his own crew, and who was on it? Do you think that Mihawk and Shanks at some point were crewmates? Like, because they had a big duel.
Shanks was in attendance when Gold Roger got executed, and at that point, he had the straw hat. We actually see a shot of it. He's pulling the hat over his eyes and he's crying.
He had it too during when Odin came.
Right. So, so I think at that point, when he witnessed the execution of Gold Roger, that's when he went off to start his own crew.
Yeah.
Because we see it echoed in the Paramount War when Whitebeard dies. He goes, you guys have to go on without me and carve your own path, which is essentially what Gold Roger did when he died. So now Marco is the captain of the Whitebeard Pirates. But essentially he was like, you guys have to do your own thing now. And that's what happened when Gold Roger died. Most of his crew was in attendance. Even Gecko Moria was there, which is really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they saw that, and I guess that was their cue to like do their own thing. The real question is Shanks a Devil Fruit user, or is he just like somebody who's insanely powerful? Like Garp is insanely powerful, like Sanji's insanely powerful, like Zoro's insanely powerful, which I'm hoping for.
I think it's just his hockey. I don't think he has a Devil Fruit. I think he's pure hockey.
Yeah.
And I think, but who taught him it? Was it Rayleigh?
So I will say this: if we're gonna have a flashback on every Emperor of the Sea, because we've had how Big Mom was made, we didn't really have how Kaido was made.
We need that, dude.
I don't think we're gonna have it.
You don't think so?
No.
I feel like he's too big of a character for us not to get it.
This is what we know. He was part of the Rocks Pirates. At some point, he was a normal dude, and then Big Mom got him the fish no me.
Yeah.
So I think that's his story. I don't think we're gonna know anything else. But if there is gonna be another flashback in the next arc, I guess a proper origin story to Shanks would be pretty amazing. And then if we can confirm that Mako's child is in fact Shanks' baby, that would be so cool. Because that would be the guy that Luffy gives the hat to.
Yeah, right? Okay, look at that. That's another great theory.
If I watch this episode like 5 years from now and that's true, I'll be so happy.
Yeah, I'm so excited to look back on this. That is so awesome. But then we also have Blackbeard's backstory, who is probably one of the biggest enigmas currently in One Piece.
I don't know. Wasn't that not said explicitly? He was a member of Whitebeard Pirates, right?
But remember,
he stole a devil fruit. In order to do it, he had to scar Shanks. Right? Isn't that just whole story? This
is what happened, because he's my favorite character. So I think I know, like, almost.
Yeah.
I know him pretty well.
I don't remember that much.
So remember, he was picked. This was in Odin's flashback. He was picked up by Whitebeard's crew, and he was like, I have nowhere else to go. And he was wearing like fatigues and things like that. He was like an orphan, and he traveled with them. But then remember that weird shot where Shanks and Buggy look at like Marshall D. Teach, and they were like, what's up with that guy? He doesn't sleep.
He never sleeps.
Yeah, why not? Like, what's going on here? So my theory, I think I told you this before, my theory is that Vegapunk experimented on Blackbeard when he was a kid. Yeah.
And that's how he's able to steal abilities?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because no one in the One Piece world can have more than one devil fruit. He has two.
Whoa, wait a second. Yeah, so maybe he did like escape from a lab.
That's possible. I never read that theory. I thought of it myself. And I think it's pretty sound. Because one, we'd never seen Dr. Vegapunk. Two, why does Teach have the ability to have more than one devil?
Yeah. And he recently just took Gecko Moria's ability.
No, he No, he wants to use Gecko's. That's what we think. That's what the fans are speculating, that he took his. I thought he was gonna take Kaido's. I thought he was gonna take Kaido's Devil Fruit. He was gonna like wheel in, but I don't think that's gonna happen anymore. So I think he is gonna take. He is either going to take Gecko's Devil Fruit or Gecko's going to join the Blackbeard Pirates. And dude, this is probably the most controversial One Piece theory of all time. You ready for this? So, Gecko Moria is going to join the Blackbeard Pirates, right? So Gecko Moria can bring zombies up. They're going to resurrect Ace and Whitebeard and have zombie versions of them.
I think those characters are like the patron saints of this series, so I don't think that Oda would allow them to be handled in that way.
You don't think so?
No.
Oh my god, could you imagine though? That would be crazy. I think I read that in a YouTube comment and I was like, holy crap.
That would be pretty weird, but I don't know. I just don't think they're just too respected at this point that they have to be
besmirched that way.
Yeah. Like, dude, you gotta think about the way Whitebeard died. Like, he died standing up. You know, like that's it. That's the last time you see that character.
Oh yeah, that's true.
In my opinion.
Oh yeah, he did die. I remember there was a time where Whitebeard was my favorite character.
Yeah, man, he's really, really great. I think my favorite scene with him is they go to help him when all the Marines like jump on him, and he tells them to stay back, and then he just like, we never really see him talk much. That's the beautiful thing. But then he starts monologuing to these guys, which is so beautiful, and he's like, you have no idea who I am. Like, and he's not talking to them, like he's talking to himself, because he knows he's old and he just got stabbed in the chest and he might die. And he's like, you have no idea who I am. Like, you have no idea who you're up against. I'm Whitebeard. And then he just pursues to like just destroy everything. And it's like he's trying to convince himself because he's scared. He knows he's gonna die, but he's saying it to himself like, dude, I'm Whitebeard. Like, I'm a legend. Like, he's saying it to himself. It's just such a great scene, you know?
Yeah, because he really was so strong. Like, he had the Goro Numi, right? I think that's what it is. It's the earthquake one. And he was so strong that he made like Akainu like shiver. Like, I thought that was such a cool detail.
Yeah, I think it's cool in his last moments. Like, he strikes at Akainu because at the beginning of the Paramount War, he tells Marco, he's like, no matter what happens, like, don't let anything happen to Luffy, don't let anything happen to Ace. And like, the fact that both of those things happened just made him so mad that he had to strike back at Akainu.
Yeah. Man.
So yeah, man. But no, that's an interesting theory. I ultimately think though that a lot of the fights that people think are going to happen are not going to be fights. They're going to be exchanges, but not exactly fights. But we know for a fact that there's going to be one giant war. There's going to be a huge like pirate war style arc. Yeah.
But the thing is with Blackbeard, so again, like, he has 2 Devil Fruits. He has the Shadow one, so he can take Devil Fruit users' abilities, which is already like an overpowered. Like, that's OP, insane. Yeah. But now he has Whitebeard's power, which, correct me if I'm wrong, could destroy the world, right?
Yeah, that's like the earthquakes. He can literally make the earthquakes. How can he be defeated?
How, dude? How are they going to beat him? How are they going to get close enough to him?
I don't know, man. I think the one thing that they're going to have to play on is that Blackbeard is not this super smart guy. He's kind of like a coward. Like, he's represented to be like kind of a dumb coward. So that's what happens in multiple times, right? So he runs his mouth and impel down, and Luffy punches him in the stomach. The very second he's introduced, he's pursuing Luffy and he gets destroyed by the knock-up stream. He tries to recruit Ace. He's dumb enough to say that he's going after Luffy. Ace proceeds to beat him up, right? At the Paramount War, when they attack Whitebeard, it turns out he's not dead. So they all stand super far away from him, remember? Because they're too scared to get close to him, and they cowardly shoot him. So like, he has all this power, but it's not his. He's actually a coward and a thief. That's what he is. You know what I'm saying? Like, from the very origin that Oda introduces him, he's a guy who stole. He betrays everybody that thought that he was supposed to be trusted by. So I think that's his own hubris, so to speak, is what's going to be what takes him down. The fact that he's just not as hardcore as someone as Luffy, you know?
Yeah. No, yeah, it's a good point.
He's just a dummy with a gun. Like, that's what's so cool about Blackbeard, is that he really is what I think a real-life pirate would be, which is just this this drag of society, sort of like this burnout, you know, this gross, disgusting, detestable person that instead of getting a job and contributing to society is addicted to stealing and robbing and just being an outlaw. That's him. That's his pirate island right now. It's just it's him and girls and beer and party and like that's it. Like he just wants to be a pirate. I
feel like he's too calculated of a character. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I feel like we see him in different ways, but yeah,
we do, and I guess it'll never really be shown unless we get to his arc. But like the way that he knew he waited for that specific devil fruit, I know that's like a little minor thing.
Yeah.
But I think that's just how calculated he is. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, no, he definitely has some sort of plan. I just don't think he's as tactful. But yeah, there's so much to see, like just to see what his crew is capable of. Like, you know, like all the members, like what can they do? Like that's gonna be really interesting too.
I mean, Kaido's crew was crazy. The 1,000 Beast Pirates, like they were a handful, right? And we didn't really even see them flex all the way, did we?
No, we've been introduced to the members that the other crew members are going to have to fight.
Yeah.
So Sanji's going to have to fight the Black Widow and so on and so on and so on. I guess
that's so annoying, dude. If we have
we're going to have to. Unless Oda's learned his lesson from Dressrosa. Everyone was very much complaining, like, we don't want to see the Senior Pink fight. We don't want to see the Tontadas. We just want to see what happens with Doflamingo, Law, and Luffy. Yeah. So hopefully Oda's learned from that. But I just feel like he can't. He has to. There has to be something that when we cut back into the fight, it makes you excited. So I think that's his whole thing is like he has to have a distraction. So when we cut back into the fight, you're like, oh, because if it's just that the whole time, I don't know. I think he's afraid the shock will wear off.
But I think again, like it's gonna be so much easier to take that when we reread because now we're waiting week to week, and it's like we just want to see the story go on. We don't have time for this, but. In retrospect, we'll be like, this whole thing was just awesome.
Oh, yeah. You know as I'm getting older, my memory's bad. Like, I forget what happened 2 chapters ago. So I'm like, wait, like, why does this character look like this? Like, I don't even remember. I thought Killer was, like, permanently damaged by the smile fruit. Where, like, he couldn't stop laughing. Now he's back to normal. Like, how did
Where's
that happen?
That mask? Yeah.
I forgot all about that. So, like, when I reread, like, maybe that'll be clear. But, yeah, man. I think in total, there's a lot that we've experienced, and there's a lot that we have to look forward to. And I just want to say, my personal opinion, One Piece is the best comic I've ever read, and it's my favorite comic I've ever read.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. I absolutely love it inside and out. It's just so much fun. Yeah. And it's so cool to see how many people love it. You know what I mean? Like that subreddit is just like I love seeing fan theories. Like I love seeing like artwork that people have. I love seeing how it inspires people. And it inspires me too. And like it inspires you. I love to see it inspire you, and I love to talk about it with you. That's my favorite thing. I love talking about One Piece with you. It's it's so much fun, dude.
Well, yeah, you're the only person I would have on. I mean, I know a lot of people that are passionate about the series, but like you've really taken a liking to it, and it's cool, man, that you like read it all in one fell swoop. Because like I've been reading it over the span of years. Yeah. Like so to me, a lot of it was like, oh, that happened a long time ago. But like to you, like you just, it's all fresh. So it's more cohesive.
It's not as fresh as it once was. But I will say this. I think personally, I got caught up at the best possible time that someone could get caught up. It was right after Whole Cake Island. Like right after it ended. I feel like that was such a great part to be. Because I got to experience the Reverie arc weekly. And that's insane. I just thought that was like the fandom when that happened was just like crazy, and it just like reiterated why One Piece is so much fun. Yeah, because it was like whoa, and then like you can talk to people about it, and it makes you like wonder. And I feel like that's I don't know, I like that. I like the idea of wonderment in a story, and that One Piece is one of those that make you do that. So yeah, it's just an adventure, the whole thing.
That's cool. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Is there anything else that you want to touch on? Anything else you want to talk before we end this?
How many chapters do you think we have left? So I want to watch this like when it all ends again. I think that's going to be so funny to watch.
So volume 98 just got announced in Japan. I'm not sure if you were following that account that I showed you on New Year's. Yeah, so Oda posted a time lapse of the drawing of that cover today.
All the scribbles.
Yeah, he said that One Piece is going to end a little after 100 volumes. So maybe like 103, 104, 105, I'm guessing. A little bit after 100. So I don't think it's going to get to like 110. So let's see. I guess maybe there's like 10 chapters in every book. Is that the case? And we're on 98 now. So I'm not really that great at math, but I think so 2 3
I'd say
4
like
5. So maybe like 80 or 100 chapters left.
it's crazy. And then 5 years, right? I think Oda was saying
2025 is predicted, yeah. So what's going to be really interesting is that the manga is going to be over for a while, right? And then the anime is going to be catching up. So like everybody who's done reading the manga and has already cried and like experienced the ending of One Piece, all attention is going to be on the anime. And so I feel like the production staff is going to be like, all right, no one's reading the manga anymore. Everyone knows how this ends. So if we want to wow them, like we got to wow them. And I think,
dude,
like the final episodes are going to be like movie quality, the highest end anime directors, the most production time. Like they're just going to end it with the biggest boom that they could possibly do it, because no one's reading the manga anymore. So the main pull is just like, let's watch it end in animated form.
That's so fun to look forward to.
Yeah. And then there's, there's going to be movies, and there's probably going to be a video game. And then, yeah, there are probably going to be a bunch of spin-off books, like a full encyclopedia of the entire series with every single reference you could ever have. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's going to be stuff like that, and that's just going to keep coming out. So that's the cool thing about One Piece, is like the story's going to end. Oda's probably just going to take the rest of his life to relax and just enjoy the fact that he broke a lot of literary records in the world. And then there's just going to be like hundreds of books that are just going to be sold based off of One Piece existing.
Interesting. You think it's gonna have like a Dragon Ball effect, where we're gonna get like a One Piece series, One Piece Super or something like that, or you think it's just that's it?
I think that the person that would dedicate themselves to doing something like that, if it wasn't Oda, would just have such a massive undertaking. It's just too intimidating. I feel like he's just so intimately woven himself within One Piece, like just little things like Panda Man and all this stuff that's just like so him.
Yeah.
That it's just impossible for like a Toyotaro, so to speak, to show up and carry the reins. I think there might be a one shot, but One Piece is long enough that like if you want something new, you can just reread it.
Yeah.
You'll probably find something new in there. It's like that's how rich it is.
Yeah.
So I think once One Piece ends, it'll end, because it has to, man. Like that's the whole reason why you and I are reading it, is because we know that there's going to be an end. That this journey that we started with chapter 1, that's on 1001, is going to have a conclusion, and we're just all hoping and praying that that conclusion isn't rushed, and that it's good, and that it can be done in the way that the artist originally intends it. Because I'm not going to lie to you, bro, like if some outside force interferes, like Oda getting sick, or like somebody really rushing him, or an editor like, all right, we got to wrap it up, I'm going to be pissed, because I spent a bunch of my life, like a lot of my life, reading this book. So I'd be very sad, but I don't think it's going to be that way.
Yeah, I don't think it will either.
No.
Or let's hope not.
Yeah, knock on wood, man.
Yeah.
All right, so is that it?
Yeah, 1,000 chapters.
1,000 chapters, man. We've been wanting to have this for a while. This podcast I'm going to release, probably not a lot of people are going to listen to it. If you're a One Piece fan, you'll love it. But yeah, we've been wanting to talk just One Piece and record it for a while. I feel like this is more for us. Like,
yeah, dude.
We're going to listen to this and just be like, oh man, we were so wrong. Or like, oh dude, we were kind of right. Like, I feel like that'd be awesome if we listened to it. We're like, yo, that wasn't bad. Yeah, man. But thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I'm glad we finally got to do it.
This has been the 1,000 chapter episode.
Extravaganza.
Extravaganza. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next.